Okay, we are live. Let me just turn off the fan for a second. Hold on. All right. Oh, okay, we got one person already. I gotta start spreading the word that we're live because I went a little early, wanted to get a little head start. I've been busy just for the past hour. I've been doing thumbnails and all that stuff. And oh yeah, I have this orange thing on my tag because I got to get tested for COVID today. And they want you to have it before Monday so they know that you got tested. I was getting air quotes, but it's pointless. I made a joke that it feels like I'm being tracked. You better not be tracking me, Oswego. All right, let's see. We had one person leave. That's sad. It's always sad. But the one person still here until they leave. All right, let's see. So here we go. So we're gonna do Instagram first. We're gonna put the story on there. Okay, that's okay. Nobody's watching right now at the moment. Like nothing's going on really that much. We're gonna get into the video why we're here, because we're talking about two albums today, the band and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young this time, which we will get more into that and all that. So yeah, all will be good. As our last guest said, we're gonna be chilling like a villain. So yeah. Okay. Now I just gotta send the link. Okay. All right, here we go. This is always the best time, sending the link out. Doing it manually all the time. Okay. All right. I know this is weird that I'm recording myself doing this stuff. All right, let's see. Let's get to the groups. All right, good. I made my rounds. Now let's get on with the show. Let's get on with why we're here, and we have a lot to discover and a lot to focus on. So let's do that. Let's get that taken care of. So we're here to talk to you because last time we talked about the debuts of two bands, which is one, the band, and Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Now, both of them for their second albums had a lot of more of a different, a little bit of a different atmosphere. For the band, it was that some of the songs on their first one were contributed songs from Bob Dylan. This time, this was all them completely, and I guess that's why, in a sense, it's called the band. Some people call it the Brown Album, considering the way the cover is. And Crosby, Stills, and Nash, in their second record, Deja Vu, they had, because they were in Atlantic Records, and the guy who was basically, the head of Atlantic Records, so he was a big name for years, Ahmet Ertegun. Ahmet Ertegun said to Stephen Stills, because he produced Buffalo Springfield, he had them on their label when, because the Atlantic label, Stephen Stills was already on that when he was with his band Buffalo Springfield, and who was in that band was Neil Young. And Ahmet Ertegun said to Stills that he should have Young join the group because to get a little bit more of a rock edge. And Steven Stills has said that too. He wanted to do what Buffalo Springfield was doing because Crosby, Stills, and Nash were more of like a folkish kind of thing. Even though David Crosby and Graham Nash were able to put some rock songs on the first album, but they wanted more of a heavier rock approach because that's something that Neil Young can do, and especially with Steven Stills' guitar playing and and the type of instruments he can play, it worked well. It's funny, the only one that was not fully on board with having Neil Young in the group was Graham Nash, because Graham Nash said that he felt like it was already discovered, like they already knew what they were doing, like they already had their sound and formula that worked. He didn't know what they needed from Neil, but then after he talked to him, because he had like a mock interview with him, and basically he asked him why should you join the band. And he basically said, well, have you heard me and Steven play guitar together? And then he was saying, after, hearing the type of songs that he has and seeing the types of songs he has, he's like, I would have made him king of the world. And then, so, that's how he joined. Because it was like, and of course, out of all of them, after, this album, they all started going on their solo albums. So they all did have successful solo albums. But of course, Neil Young became the biggest solo star out of all of them. And is the only one out of them that is inducted by himself. He's not inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Crosby, Stills, Nash. It's just as them, which I guess because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has a certain criteria, and considering around that time, he only technically did one album with them, technically one studio album. There was the live album, but most of the other two albums that were released in the 70s for Crosby, Stills, Nash. Actually, the only other album that was released in the 70s that was a studio album was just with Crosby, Stills, Nash. Neil Young was no longer with them. He was going back to doing the solo stuff. And the funny thing too is he teamed up with Steven Stills, and they did some stuff together. And Graham Nash, David Crosby did some stuff together on their own. They released a few albums together, and and I think Steven Stills and Neil Young did released an album together. And then right after, Crosby, Stills, and Nash reunited and all that. But yeah, no. So let's go into talking about two albums, and why don't we start off with the band, considering it came out in 1969 and Deja Vu came in 1970. Let's do a little bit of a chronological order here. So unfortunately, because I'm up at Oswego, I didn't want to take any of my dad's vinyl records because they're really precious to him and to me, and I didn't want anything to happen to them. So I decided to play it safe and not bring him. So the way that will be our guide will be the power of streaming services with Amazon Music. And oops, it's not available. Okay. All right. Well, we are going. Well, we don't need that fully, but see, blowing up on the spot. It's chomping at the bit. But anyway, no. So without further ado, let's start talking about the band. Now, the band's second album came out in '69. They already had their first album, Music from Big Pink, and that was already really successful with their song "The Wait" and all that. They played at Woodstock, and so they were getting traction. And especially with this album, it helped them more. They got on Ed Sullivan. There's a clip you can find on YouTube of them up on Cripple Creek on Ed Sullivan, which is one of the tracks, which we'll get to. But yeah, we're going to start off, of course, going by chronological order throughout the album and all that stuff, and we'll discuss all of it, because this is a really good album, and you don't want to not talk about. You can't talk about. Because I've listened to every song on this album, and it's hard not to talk about any of them. I have an opinion on basically all of them. So yeah, and So without a further ado, I'm just trying to get it on Amazon with the Wi-Fi to see if I could do that. Hold on a second, guys. Oh, the Wi-Fi here is so stupid. It was so easier last year, or it felt easier. I don't know. It's a year ago. Maybe it was just hard. I don't know. But anyway, honestly, I know the tracks by heart. We don't need that really as a guide, really. So the way this album opened is another great opener, like the first music from Big Tears of Rage. This is another one by Manuel. He opens up the album with the song Across the Great Divide. And Across the Great Divide is definitely something that, you can listen to that's like, just like you're following along with the beat, the story, the vocals, and all that. It's something like it's like a dot, and you're just like following along to it because it goes slow, and then it goes to a little like a like a like a little bit of a seesaw thing throughout the song, and that's what makes the song really really good. It's like it's like kind of bouncy in a sense, and basically with this album, it's more of a story album because a lot of people praise the band for their stuff of their Americana use. They're talking about the deep South in a sense that like from because these guys were from Canada and they were writing stories from their experience when they were in the Hawks, or it was fiction. It was a lot of fictional stories. They weren't doing love songs. The point of their songs were like, films. Any song of theirs that you can list is basically like a short minute movie, like The Wait, or for instance, on this album, Can Harvest, but we'll get through all of them. But that's the last track on this album. There's 12 tracks. So, but this one starts with, apparently Across the Great Divide is about a guy whose wife is about to shoot him, and he's trying to tell her not to, and it goes like, standing by your window in a pain, a pistol in your hand, and I beg you, dear Molly girl, try to understand, the best you can, and then there's one like what you did with the gun and all that. So very good song, and definitely sets the example that this album is going to be a lot of about stories and all that. And then of course we get to the next track, which because in the first album we had The Wait with Levon and all that. That was basically one of the only songs that really got to show Levon's voice. This album's got a few more good Levon tracks, and the second one, of course, is a big one of theirs is Rag Mama Rag. And the tuba on that by their producer John Simon played on that. The type of instrumentation on that is very, it does have like a ragging kind of beat, and it's definitely. I mean, Levon sings great on. It just shows you how great of a singer Levon is, and one of the best Levon songs from the band and all that. I mean, it's hard like what not to say about it, like as in, because it's just such a good song in a sense, like of just like of how it ends. The beginning, like I love lyrics like "gonna turn you loose like a long neck goose," and then the way he sings it too is just like the way he sings that. It just gives it like, and the emphasis too, like also to the emphasis of his voice with the instruments too, like work pretty well together too. And then we've got the third track, which is one of their most big known songs, which is it's one of their most signature songs too, is "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down." Now, I should probably address the elephant in the room with that. Now, to address the type of song is like I said, the band is a story, like they tell a lot of stories in their albums. And the way Robbie Robertson described how he wrote this song was from when they were playing with Ronnie Hawkins, they went out, like this was in the early 60s, like 60, I think around probably like 60 or 61, where they went to the South, like the Mississippi Delta and all that stuff. And Robbie Robertson talked about all his favorite influences, and all the greats were from there, like Robert Johnson, all that stuff. But and he was saying like all of the musicians he loved were like from African Americans, and he just adored that type of music. And he said that when he went to the South and all that stuff, he saw like the Jim Crow laws and all that, and just could not understand it. And he said that like one time he was with Levon, and they went to Levon's father's house in Arkansas. And Levon's father said to Robbie, and called him apparently Robin and stuff like that. And he said, Robin, one day the South will rise again. And, just it horrified him. And, and it's such a horrifying statement. And, it just shows you too that, people have those types of relatives, and stuff like that. I have those relatives too, but, but yeah, no. So anyway, he was saying that like years later when they were doing this album, it was becoming more of a like they, like that word, that phrase came into his mind. And it went more into like, and then like this mental movie came out. And now, of course, this is another controversy of with their songwriting because, it's credit to just Robbie Robertson, and Levon claims that he helped a lot with the song, that he did like half of the work and he did not get the credit for it as well. And I think Robbie Robertson did explain that Levon did help him write the song, or like at least because they both collaborate on the album. Because like Robbie Robertson always talks about that Levon was his partner, and that Levon was like, I guess, the one that he was more connected to, I guess, in a sense. Because also too, Levon was the first to be with Ronnie Hawkins. Robbie Robertson was the second, and then they found Rick Danko and Richard Manuel, and then later Garth Hudson, and all that. But yeah, no. So of course, there's a lot of that songwriting in there, and what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I mean, I know more about the story after reading more into it. That it's more of like, from what I can understand, is that it was a group effort. But the thing is too is that like, and Robbie Robertson too did write a lot of like the lyrics and the ideas, but the band helped with a lot, like with arranging. Like Garth Hudson, I think, because he was the most musically skilled out of all of them, he was the one that was able to come up with how it could sound and all that. So yeah, no. So of course, and I mean, listen. So apparently, legally, he did not do anything wrong. Credit them, because how we always think, goes on interviews saying these guys were my brothers, and stuff like that. It's kind of a little of a shitty thing to do, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, no, and it's a great song too. It's like Levon's voice on it. The harmonies between Manuel and Danko are good. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, it's a song that I like, that definitely has, like, I think people can take another meaning to, that people can read into it the wrong way, of as in people who are like Confederates, or the people who I don't want to get political here, but even support Trump in a sense like that, could think of it as like, oh yeah, this is our song, all that. So that's the one thing there of that, like, of that type of thing. Or like, if somebody says like, oh, this represents Southern pride, then like, like, whoa, like, what do you mean there when you say that? But anyway, so going on to the next song is When You Awake. Now, that's sung by Rick Danko and all that. This is the first song that he sings on the album. Danko goes into more of like, whatchamacallit? He sings like he sings like he regularly does, like raspy voice. Like I can tell like who's singing. It's funny, Richard Manuel actually's voice sounds like kind of like, can sometimes sound actually similar to both Levon and Rick at times. The way of his vocal range. But with this song, it's it's a simple song. There's not that much to say, but it is catchy. It is pretty good and all that. So that's all I gotta say to that song. And then going on to the fifth song, we got Up on Cripple Creek, which is another big song of theirs, which is another big Levon tune. And it's a great song too. Like the harmonies between Manuel and Danko again, and all that too. And I mean, I think the thing of this album is, because like I say, it's like it's got a lot of stuff from like even like the night they drove Dixie Down, talk about the South, or talk about stuff from like Deep Americana. These guys were not American. These guys were a Canadian group. They were these guys were like, Robbie Robertson is like half Jewish and Native American, so it's like it's an interesting type of thing that they were trying to find, that they were going into that mindset, and of like in almost of a way of a filmmaker does, and it makes sense in a sense because Robbie Robertson became good friends with Martin Scorsese in the 70s. Of course, he did the documentary The Last Waltz. They've done tons of collaborations with films. Robbie Robertson's done music to most of his big films, including the recent ones too, like The Wolf of Wall Street, and The Irishman, of course. And Scorsese's got a new movie out that Robertson's also doing the score for as well. So yeah. Oh, it's not. So it's of course when Robbie Robertson says that he was into movies and a lot of his songs are movies, then yeah, you could totally tell that from like with the soundtrack stuff that he does as well. So yeah, no. But yeah, Up on Cripple Creek is like another interesting, like, I mean, the wording of that, like calling it like Up on Cripple Creek, it's a fun saying to say. And yeah, Up on Cripple Creek, she sends me if I sprint a leak, she mends me. I don't have to speak, a drunkard's dream if I ever did see one. Just the way they like the way they are phrasing those words and all that, and the way even like the instrumentation with Garth Hudson's like like kind of like mind-boggling organ, like a bum, 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 bum. Yeah, no, I'm not doing it justice, but the performance of them, there is a performance of them doing it on the Ed Sullivan Show in '69. And but I will say about like like with certain TV stuff, like it's funny how they do, like, because they don't film them all at the same time, they just all do it in close-ups, and it's kind of funny because when you see Garth Hudson on it, like he like now if you see Garth Hudson in interviews and stuff like that on like videos, he and in the group he did not sing. He was the only member that did not sing at all. Robbie Robertson didn't really sing. He only sang on 2 tracks, but Garth Hudson was the only one that never sang at all. So yeah, but when he's on that stage on the Ed Sullivan, he's very like smiling and all that. And even some of the other albums, he looks like a guy who's like just like a very bit like like a big teddy bear and all that. But when you see him on interviews and videos, like he's very quiet, and when he does speak, it's like very like almost like it's frightening. Like what is he gonna call you out? And then like because he seems like he just doesn't care how he comes up, how he comes off. But yeah, no, yeah, and he's one of the only surviving members from the group. He and Robbie Robertson. It's actually kind of interesting too because he was the oldest of the group, and Robbie Robertson's the youngest. So yeah, so they're both alive and all that. Yeah, like Garth Hudson, his birthday just passed, so he's like 84 or something like that. And yeah, and Robertson's like I think like 78 or something like that. But yeah, no. So and they don't perform together too. I don't know if there's any like feud between them. I mean, I know that there was a feud between. Well, Robbie Robertson said it wasn't a feud between. Like he had no issues with Levon, but Levon had issues with him because of the songwriting thing. But anyway, let's go more into the other songs because we still got a few more tracks to go over. So then after Up on Cripple Creek, we got Whispering Pines. And this is a song that, like, one of those beautiful songs that Richard Manuel does, and just shows you how great his vocal range is. And he does falsetto so well in this. And like, I think like the way the piano goes into it too, and the way like kind of like I think there's even like a harp in the beginning, and just like it's an interesting like the interesting harmonies on it, and especially at the last in the last verse, Levon and him do like a call and response and all that, and it's just a beautiful song. It's a song that makes me like want to watch the sunset. Like I told my girlfriend that like when we hang out like one time, we gotta like watch the sunset or dance to this song because it just. Honestly, it's one of those songs that I think is just, very beautiful. Just like when I heard it, I was like, damn, that's beautiful. And, and I think like what makes it beautiful is the type of harmonies or the type of vocal style that they do. Because like, I think a lot don't give credit to how good of a singer both like Levon, Rick, and Richard were. They all three were incredible voices and were definitely the 3 members that were able to dominate the band in that area. And then, okay, next we got the rockin' song Jemiah Surrender with Levon Helm again. And this time their instruments are different too because Levon usually is the drummer and Richard Manuel is the piano player. Apparently Richard Manuel played drums on this and Levon played guitar with it too. I think he played a rhythm and stuff like that because I think Robbie Robertson still played guitar in it. But yeah, no, that's another like fast beat and all that. Yeah, definitely a song you can listen to when you're driving. They didn't play at Woodstock, but they played it I think at Festival Express. Then we've got at number 8, there's the song Rockin' Chair, which I think is another good song too. That shows Manuel's voice, Manuel's soothing voice, and yeah, no, the harmonies on that work well too. I saw like I recently just watched them doing it at Festival Express when that because that was in 1970, and the harmonies between all three of them are great in that, and just the way Manuel sings the lyrics and tells the story about an old man, like where the line goes, I spent, and like the way he delivers the lines in the song, like I spent my whole life at sea and I'm pushing age 73. It's funny, like when I first heard it, I thought he was saying I'm pushing 83, and I thought like 80 73, and I thought like okay, but they're just like joking with the fake number. But like, oh, 873, yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, so then at number 9 we got "Lookout Cleveland," which is a Danko song, and yeah, no. This song is another just it has a little bit of that Jerry Lee Lewis feel with the piano. Got that little bit of that 50s boogie woogie. And all that, and breaks away from a little bit some of the songs that they do about like the South and all that, or their views on the South, like writing like about like these stories of the South, or just like the deep roots of in Americana music. Because like yeah, I think that they are labeled like Americana, and a lot of like Elton John was inspired a lot by the band, and you could tell that even in his albums, Tumbleweed Connection and even Madman Across the Water, and how like Leave On, it was based off of, they got like Bernie Taupin claimed that he came up with the name from Bernie Taupin because both of him and Elton just love Leave On album, so yeah, no, but yeah, no. So that's all I'll say with that. I don't have that other, things to say about that one. And then we got number 10, we got Jawbone. And Jawbone is that's another Manual song. And it's catchy. It's not my favorite. There's not a lot to say about that one either. But it works well being very slow. And so like it's and the way Manuel goes from it going slowly, picking it up with the way he goes into the melody works well too. So it's definitely a good tune. And then at 11 we've got Unfaithful Servant, which is another good example of the type of stories that they do. And Unfaithful Servant is sung by Rick Danko and all that. And and it works well. It was actually the B-side to Rag Mama Rag, because the singles on this album were The 98 Drove Old Dixie Down and Up on Cripple Creek as both A-sides. And then we had, Unfaithful Servant as the B-side to Rag Mama Rag. And it works well. It's a slow song, similar to Jawbone in their type of structure. But and then especially like the horn section on Unfaithful Servant works well. Definitely you can get a mental picture in your head. It is like a mental story, and I feel like that's the thing to mention too with the band, is like that they weren't, like, even when they were Bob Dylan's backup band, they weren't as different as Dylan. They were doing, they wanted to do the same thing as Dylan, but in this album they were able to express their own, like, to show that they were their own artist, because Music from Big Pink kind of had Dylan all over it, considering also too that artwork was a painting that he did. So I think it was good that they could separate themselves from Dylan to show that these guys are their own thing too. They know how to do their own tunes. So then, of course, the 12th song ends with Kin Harvest. And Kin Harvest, of course, is that's another Manual song. Which honestly, it sounds like when I say like Manual, can sometimes sound like Levon or Rick. This time he sounded a little like Levon. I can't tell, and also because he and Levon sing the beginning together, so it kind of is hard to tell at first. But no, it's another type of good example of the type of stories they tell, and Manuel singing in the voice of a union worker and all that. I think it's a good choice to end the album. That's pretty much what I got to say of it. I mean, it's one of their best albums too. I mean, out of the band's catalog completely, their first 2 albums were a success. Now, it's funny because in a lot of groups, usually it's not the first 2 albums that everybody recommends or cherishes, but in this case it is. I mean, they had some other good stuff after, but nothing really like these songs that I think I really could relate to audiences, and also too, these albums were a little bit more mainstream than the other stuff that they did throughout the 70s, because there was a time period where they did a cover album completely of Moondog Matinee, where it was just basically cover songs, and there was a period where they decided to play with Bob Dylan again and be Bob Dylan's backing band and released an album called Planet Waves. That is, or Planet Waves. Oh God, Dylan fans are gonna get on my ass about that, and my dad too if he sees that. But yeah, no. So that's all I gotta say to that. So moving on to the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young album, Deja Vu. So we talked a little bit about them, about how Neil Young joined the group. And also too, if you see in the album, it's the four of them, but it's also got two other guys, and it's Dallas Taylor and Greg Reeves, and their names are on the album, like it's shown in the bottom. And Dallas Taylor was the drummer, and Greg Reeves was the bass player. The song starts off with "Carry On," and "Carry On" is like, honestly, it was like I just saw a video of this of Graham Nash, David Crosby, and Stephen Stills talking about "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes," and Graham Nash actually said to Stephen Stills when they were doing the album that the only thing we're missing is "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes." Stephen Stills was like, well, we already did "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes" on the other record, and he goes like, no. He was saying like a song like "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes," like we don't have that like kind of open and hook. And so that's how Stephen Stills came up with "Carry On." And "Carry On" is definitely a good open hook and definitely something that I think represents Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And it's like, and the harmonies between all three of them, and actually because Neil Young wasn't on this track, and that's the funny thing about it is Neil Young is not on all the tracks. Neil Young basically just performed on all the tracks that he wrote and sang on. He did do two tracks. He did perform on two tracks that weren't his, which we'll get to. We'll talk to him more about. But no, "Carry On" is just another good example of their harmonies, and was released as a single with the next track. And it's a good way to go into it is "Teach Your Children." So "Teach Your Children," so that's another good way to set off the album, like almost the way in the first album how Stephen Stills opened it up with "Sweet Judy Blue Eyes," and then it's just the flow kept going on with "Marrakesh Express." That's kind of the same with "Teach Your Children." And an interesting fact on this is Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead plays steel guitar on this. And because Jerry Garcia wanted to learn more of was curious of the harmonies between the three singers and wanted to do that in the band The Grateful Dead, and which they did, which that was their style in their two albums of 1970, American Beauty and Working Man's Dead. So that's that for that. Teach Your Children, Teach Your Children. I think it's got great lyrics too, and I think it shows you today of how important it is to teach your children the right values, or the values of being a citizen in society or participant in society. And I think it just shows you got to teach them well, because it's like and they it's like that's the thing. It's like you have a job of teaching these kids, your offspring, this information to go out the world to be, well-behaved adults. And the father's help will slowly go by. And then, and it's just like talking about how important it is to just, be there for your kids, so your kids can later on be there for their kids. And I think the types of lyrics work well. I think Graham Nash singing lead on this works. It's actually interesting too, because like Marrakesh Express, he wrote this during the holidays, and he actually wrote this pretty early on, which is kind of funny. It's just it's such a good song that relates to the time. I thought. But yeah, it was written actually in 1966, and the holidays I don't think ever touched it. There is a demo and a bonus track on the Crosby, Stills, Nash album of him and David going over the song. So now we're going to the third track, which is a David Crosby song. And when I talked about how on the last one, how like he was very, he had more of a rocking kind of outlook on on the song "Long Time Gone," and even with Wooden Ships. But with Almost Cut My Hair, I mean, this is the most, I think, probably the most essential David Crosby song. It just like, because the way he just like slashes out of the voices too, because like I said, I feel like he has a very gentle and a beautiful and a great voice. But the way he just like he sings this like a rock star. And like it's funny because in the beginning he goes like, "I will now proceed with this entire entanglement," which I think I didn't get a chance to look that up or Google, but it sounds like he's like doing an impression of Ed Sullivan. But yeah, no. But no, that's a great tune. And just like and Neil Young did participate on that one, and this is the first track on the album that he participated on. And apparently, from what I heard, is because Neil did a lot of his parts separately, and like he would do his demo of the song that he was doing, and then he would give it to them and they would back him up on it on their time. So yeah, no, but yeah, no. Apparently, this band they did it all together in one take and stuff like that. And no, it's a very good rock song, and it represents like the hippie movement of the time. Like I'm not giving it like the line. I'm not giving it an inch to fear. I'm not going to let the establishment get to me. Or like at the time, like they talk about a lot of their anger towards Richard Nixon and all that, which we will get to as well in this stream as well. But so now we go to the fourth track, which is by Neil Young, and it's great that they keep doing it in order. So and I think that's what shows you what this type of band was. In a sense, they weren't like your average band; they were your band of these four powerful stars that were just making music together because they were good friends. And Neil Young did Helpless, Helpless. And of course, this lyric is good for me now because, there is a town on North Ontario and I'm on Lake Ontario. And I feel like sometimes there's not that much to do in this town. So it does leave me helpless. So, but yeah, no, the slowness of the tune works. And the backing vocals from Stills, Nash, and Crosby are good. Yeah, no, I think this song works well too. And also too, it's funny talking about this that Neil Young actually did this song with the band in the Last Waltz, and that's the first version I heard. That's actually how I first was introduced to the song, and then I found out that he did it with Crosby, Stills, and Nash and all that. No, it works well together. It's a great song. So yeah, no. So now we got number 5, which is also okay. Yes, I'm glad we talk about this one. We've got Woodstock, which was written by Joni Mitchell, but Steven Stills sings on it and did more and changed like the arrangement on it. So let's talk about the story of this now, of course, because Woodstock was the big event in 1969, and we honestly just passed the anniversary date, the 52nd anniversary of Woodstock, and of course, Woodstock had so many incredible performers. I mean, you had the Who, Jimi Hendrix with doing the Star Spangled Banner, Sly and the Family Stone, Creedence Clearwater, Grateful Dead, Richie Haven, all kids. It was just an incredible festival, and it was a festival to promote peace. That's what it was for. And Joni Mitchell, even though she was getting big at the time, she could not make it because that weekend she was supposed to be on the Dick Cavett show, and that was supposed to be her big break. And the promoters of the show and she was supposed to perform, but the promoters of the show did not think that she would get there in time because, like, once because it started coming in like hundreds to thousands to millions, and like they knew she wasn't going to be back in time. So they decided that. So she just heard about it from other people. The festival because apparently the time did it's possible she could have done it because they all I think were on the show after Stephen Stills and David Crosby. I think they were able to all come out after, but she was talking to people about it, and she just I think came up with it in her I think the story was she came up with it in her hotel room, and and she wrote about the experience from like even though she wasn't there. And she played it to because she was going out with Graham Nash at the time. And she was part of that inner circle with Stephen Stills and David Crosby. And Stephen Stills said to her "Can I have that song?" And she was a little reluctant at first, and he said, "I will make it great, trust me." And he added, because it was very, more like folksy kind of first, and then he added that rock edge that Neil Young helped on that. That's the other song that Neil Young collaborates on, and this song is just very just so perfect. Like the way the guitar, just like starts off like the bam and just the way it's just like he's playing with it, like it's almost like how somebody dribbles with a ball, and then it just keeps going in and then you just keep bopping your head till then when Steven Still starts singing, and the chorus is great. I mean the harmonies are great, so it's just a great song. And yeah, I mean I think the chorus is my favorite part of the song too, and the way they sing it too, which is great. So moving on to number 6 is the song that's the title track of the album that was written by David Crosby, which is called Deja Vu. And this is very, good. A little bit of that, not psychedelic edge, but it's a little dizzy and a little spinning. It spins around and all that. And it works pretty well. Actually, an interesting thing is John Sebastian from the Lovin' Spoonful does harmonica on this. And of course, the lyrics actually do represent what the song is, even though it doesn't say it in the song. But it's like if I feel like I've ever been here before, I probably just know what to do, and I feel like I've been there before, And no, and I think the song works well. I think too, I think just as like it's it's a song of expression. It's not somebody, it's not a ditty. It's not like a love you song. It's not like something corny or silly. It's something that just like naturally flows off the tongue, or just like something that just like makes you question life. Like, have I been here before? And maybe it's about like the use with but you can also, I think, take that example that it could be about when you're doing drugs, like taking acid or like getting high, that you could feel like you've been there before. And of course, because of course they were known as a group that were big into drugs. I mean, David Crosby is still a freaking hippie and still smokes marijuana all the time. I mean, so yeah, no, but yeah. So that's what I'll say about that song. So then we have at number 7, we have probably one of their signature songs, Our House, which is by Graham Nash, which talks about his relationship with Joni Mitchell, and how it was basically just like natural conversation when they were together, where it was like where he says like, I'll light the fire, you place a flower in the vase that you bought today, because she bought the vase and all that. And and it's just talking about a simple life and just something that like of what the future could be, like with two cats in the yard, like just talking about a simple living in the American dream. And the melody works well for it. And I actually first learned the story actually from the series This Is Us, actually, because at the time I wasn't a huge Crosby, Stills, and Nash fan. I really just only got into them and the band a year ago. Like, I knew who they were before, and I didn't have anything against them or even the band. That was one of the groups I just didn't really have that much attention to. But yeah, no. I learned that story from Mandy Moore's character talking about it, because she was a huge Joni Mitchell fan of her character, and so that was how I knew about that. So now we got the 8th track, which is 4 and 20, and this was by Stephen Stills, and it's just him on guitar. And the funniest thing is, like, he was going to, because he also released a solo album this year, he was just going to put on a solo album, but the group convinced him that like it works here, and he did that. And there was talk that like they would add harmonies onto it or something like that, or that they would add stuff, but Steven Stills thought just to leave it alone, of just having it. It does sound a little like a demo and all that stuff. And what I actually kind of find funny is because what I've realized is that Steven Stills does this song as like completely by himself. Yeah, it's on a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young record. Yet on his own record, the song "Love the One You're With," Graham Nash and David Crosby do backing vocals on that, and that's on his own album. So I kind of find that funny. Well, yeah, no. So on number 9, we got "Country Girl," which is another Neil Young song. And I don't have that much to say about it. I mean, it's definitely got that moody edge to it, and all that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the few songs like Neil Young too he sang on too, because you have to remember too, like, because like Neil Young, because this, they only did this, like, because everybody talks about Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, and yes, they did performance together, and even in the 2000s, they performed together. But as a studio album wise and songs together, they really didn't, like, this was the only like real album that they put a song out together during that time. I mean, the late 80s they released the second Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young record, and then in 2000 they put out their last record as all four of them, and that was like the last like studio album and all that stuff. But no, I mean, it works well. It's it's a very slow song. It's definitely got that Neil Young type of vibe, and I mean, of course, Neil Young is great and all that. So it works well, and yeah, no. So I think that works. And then we've got the last track written by Stephen Stills called "Everybody I Love You," and it's funny. The feel to it reminds me of like the Grateful Dead song "Till the Morning Comes" of the type of beat. And I looked to see if Jerry Garcia played on this one too, because he played on "Teach Your Children." But no, it did not say his name the time I saw it. It's possible. Sometimes the sites you look on are not always accurate of who played on it who, because they're able to base it on records from when they were playing, like if it was credited on the album or studio documents. But sometimes I don't know if you can always tell for sure. And sometimes it's possible that it's sometimes a guess of knowing, like let's say like a specific musician played with them before, but it's possible they didn't play on that side of the record, so that's always possible too. But yeah, no. So yeah, so that's what I'll say with that one. And yeah, so that's basically the album. But I do want to talk about two more songs of theirs, which were not released on the album because the album was released before this happened. But of course, because in 1970, in May, there was that Kent State, the Kent State event that happened in history, where 4 college students they were protesters, and they were gunned down by police officers. And it was a horrifying thing. And David Crosby gave Neil Young this article about it, and Neil Young read it and went off into the woods. And an hour later, he has Ohio, the song, yeah. And then apparently David Crosby called Graham Nash, told him to get Stills and their engineer Bill Harverson, and booked the studio, because it's like, we got to do this song. And they did it, and it's a freaking great protest song too, and you can tell the emotion on it, and just how sad even all of they were, and just how dedicated these guys were to their country. They were the type of they're the type of voice that we wish that we could have had like new stuff from them now during these like 4 years of hell under the former guy. But yeah, no. So yeah, I mean, that's all I'll say to that. Yeah, no, because it's definitely, and also too. Oh, one other thing I like to say about that song is because I like how it ends when somebody asks like how many more when they go like 4 dead in Ohio, and I thought that was Neil Young, but apparently somebody said that it was David Crosby, and I heard this from like somebody on a YouTube comment. Now I'm not quoting this, like I rarely do this, quote somebody from YouTube, just somebody what a comment said, but apparently they said that David Crosby, I just read this, that like David Crosby was the one that was shouting at, and he just after the song just broke down in tears, because I mean, a very tragic event. And so yes, that was released as a single, and then the B-side of it was "Find the Cost of Freedom," which worked well as well to that song, to that type of crisis. And that was written by Stephen Stills, and the harmonies on that are good, because just like a little bit of instrumentation with the guitar and all that, and then then you hear the harmonies and all that. But yeah, no, it what else can I say? These two groups are great performers and all that stuff. They're released great albums, and all that stuff. And I just felt like I wanted to talk about it because they've been on my mind so much. And I feel like when I love a music or a musician, I got to get it out of my system and tell somebody about it. It's as simple as that. So thank you for letting me share my experience of this album. If you want to listen to them, you should definitely do that as well. And thank you guys, and please be aware for my next streams coming up. I will always promote them. And thank you guys, and have a good night. All right, all right. So yeah.